Hi there, Lake Speed Jr. with my buddy Dyno MacAskill.
Hi guys.
We're back here at the Engine Dyno to talk about how to break in your engine. But this time, Don, we're gonna talk about doing it without the handy dandy.
You know, it's a little harder. And the reason for that is, you know, I've been in this business for quite a long time and I used to have my own shop. There was not a whole lot of folks that actually had access to a dyno. So this is when I learned a million years ago how to, after some failures, how to actually get a motor broken correctly if you do not have a dyno. Is it possible to do if you just put the brand new motor in the car and try to break it in that way? Well, yes it is, but there's just a few procedures that you must follow for a successful break-in procedure.
Because what we're trying to do in the car is replicate what we're doing here, right?
That's
if you've
correct.
seen the video we've already done about how to use the engine dyno to break in an engine,
right,
but you're like, that's great, but I don't have a dyno, what do I do? Okay, then we're going to try to replicate in the car what we're doing here.
Exactly.
But there is a technical difference we needed to kind of touch on at the very beginning.
Which is very important. There's actually two things that are super important. I'm going to get the oil problem out of the way first.
Okay.
And as Lake knows, when you're breaking in an oil, you have to have the correct oil to do it correctly.
Yep.
Now, back in the past, when I was doing it, it was kind of luck because they didn't have all the really neat oils that you have formulated.
You didn't have breaking oils.
Didn't have the good stuff. So it was a little harder back then. It makes it a little easier now. But when you're doing it in the car, one of the differences that you need to think about is the viscosity of the oil.
Yep.
Because of the fact that you cannot put the same load on that engine in the car as I can do here on the dyno,
right,
you're going to have a little bit lighter oil. Now, for example, when I'm working on a sprint car engine here, I normally use BR40, which is a great oil.
Yep, 10W40 base oil. Yep.
10W40, but when you're doing it in the car where you can't put the load on it, you need to have an oil that's just a little bit thinner, such as BR30.
Yep, it's 5W30, it's just going to flow a little easier,
exactly,
get there faster, especially
exactly,
in a wet sump engine, which most cars that are going to be doing
sumps are
the driveway break-in.
Right.
You need that better flow because, you know, viscosity is the most important characteristic of the oil, like you said, and your oil pressure can be really high, but if you don't have flow, you're going to have problems.
You're going to have problems, as we've discussed in the past in many of our different videos. Now, I'm going to kind of lump this into two different categories. Most cars today, if you're building an engine, most of the guys today are going to be using a roller camshaft.
Right.
Camshaft is, you know, that's one of the important break-in procedures in a motor. If you have a roller camshaft, the cam break-in is not that important. It's important that it has oil, and that's about it.
Right.
But if you are using a flat tappet camshaft, this procedure will be totally different than the one for the roller cam. And the reason for that is, on a flat tappet camshaft, as we've discussed in our last video about motor break-in, the first thing you need to do with that flat tappet camshaft is, when you get it started, is bring the RPM up. The RPM's got to be 3,000 RPM. And it's got to be that way for, you know, at least 20-25 minutes for correct break-in for the camshaft. Now, can you do this when you're just driving around town? You cannot do this.
No.
This procedure is really going to have to be done in the driveway. It's the only way to do it. And this is one of the reasons why it's important to have that light oil, because during this time, the rings are going to start breaking in, but it's more important for that first 20 to 30 minutes that the camshaft gets broken in correctly.
Because essentially you're breaking in the cam before you begin to break in the rings.
That's correct.
So the thing is, you need that oil that has the correct additives in there for the camshaft. You do the procedure, that's like I said, 2,500 to 3,000 RPM for 20 minutes in the driveway. There's no load on the engine at that point.
You can't put a load on it in the driveway.
So you're just going to have to break in the cam.
If you want to put the thing in gear, put your foot on the brake and put a load on it that way, that's great until your transmission breaks.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Don't do that. You know, so other thing too, while we're at it, it's really important with doing that cam break-in in the driveway to make sure that you've got fuel and spark before you try to crank it over. Actually, I was watching TV the other night with my buddy Kevin, and there were some guys who know better that wiped out a flat tappet cam.
Because they couldn't get it started.
Right, because you keep on cranking it, guess what? You may get it to crank eventually, but in the process, you will have killed your camshaft, because that cam has to have splash from the crankshaft.
Right away.
Yes, so make sure that the distributor is in correctly, all this. If it doesn't fire up pretty much right away,
stop and fix your problem. That's very important. You will lose a camshaft 80% of the time if that mistake happens.
Okay, so once we got the cam broken in,
yes.
Now how do we simulate that?
Now is the fun part. Now, for people who grew up in California, such as I, it's a little bit harder to do this than if you're out like on a rural road or something like that. But the idea, of course, freeway, you can't do it on the freeway because you're going 5 miles an hour. So you need to find an open space. You need to drive the car to an open space. And again, how do we simulate the load of a dyno? Well, the only way to do that is to step on the accelerator pedal, get the RPM of the engine up, get the load up on the engine where you're putting some torque into that motor. When you do that, that is putting the pressure on the rings that are needed to correctly break the ring in. So now, can you stay on the gas forever? No. Well, you can't do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to step on the gas, you're going to go up to 50 miles an hour, whatever, and then you're going to slow down. You're going to slow down as quickly as you can, and you're going to repeat that procedure for, time-wise, it's hard to say exactly how much time, but for as long as you can. The first 20, 30 minutes on that ring breaking procedure are really critical.
Right.
So if you can do that, if you've got enough space to do that, where you're on the gas, put a load on the car, and then back off the gas, and keep doing that, that will get your rings broken in. Even in the old days when we had these really, really thick rings that were hard to break in, it actually worked.
Yep. That had enough tension, right? Like you said, every hard acceleration is just like making a dyno pull here.
Exactly.
And it may take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pulls to do that. So
to get it broken.
Yeah. Again, obey public speed limits, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
The thing is, you don't have to run the engine all the way to its ready.
No, you do not.
You don't have to worry about that.
It's not important.
And people sometimes worry about, well, I got to baby the engine and be careful.
Worst thing you could do.
Yeah, you want to get it warmed up first, right? Because you've done the flat tap and break-in thing. Guess what? You've already warmed it up.
Right.
The engine's warmed up because you've been running it 2,500 RPM and all that for 20 minutes. The engine's warmed up. Now you can apply that load because peak cylinder pressure is going to be peak torque.
Exactly.
And peak torque's way before you get to your red line. So you don't have to run anywhere near the red line of the engine in order to create the cylinder pressure that the rings need to be able to seat in. So hopefully this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea that, hey, you can break in your engine, take care of the cam, take care of the rings to make sure the engine's broken in correctly so you get the maximum performance and longevity out of that engine. Without having to have a dyno. You just got to kind of pull some old school.
You got to pull old school.
Yeah.
Just like me, it's just, it used to work in the past and it still works today, and it's actually a touch easier today, like I said, because of the metallurgy that's going into the parts of the engine and because of guys like who make a really good oil.
So you got some good oil, got some good parts, and then you can go out there, you can break in the rings, break in your cam, get the engine all set up, ready to go. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.